Any game with dice is trash. That's why we're talking about card games, baby, cards. I stand by what I said.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yahtzee is for cowards and fools.
What's up, everybody? My name is Nick.
I'm Mike.
We're the Brothers Murph. Today we're talking about card games. Shout out to this comment right here who asked us specifically to do a list on card games. We're like, I don't think we've done a list on card games before, so thank you so much for the suggestion.
Appreciate you.
We were like, oh yeah, that's right, we should do one of these. So yeah, these are going to be games that are card games. Now,
card-driven games.
Yes,
the cards are the central thing in the game.
I guess, yeah, it's like how... We'll talk about how we define that. It's like cards are the driving force, the main thing of the game. Some of these games have some other things, but there's a lot of games that are kind of like 50% card game, 50% this kind of game. So we're really choosing ones that are very, very, very card forward. You know?
Absolutely. So that is what we're going to get into right now. Do be sure to subscribe and tell a friend and become a patron because we're going to do a supplemental list showing off even more card games over there for our patrons only.
Indeed.
So do become a patron today.
Also, we don't play like Magic or CCGs or anything.
Yeah,
That's just no, that's not gonna be on the list.
Sorry.
But now let's get into 10. Hey, what are you doing down here? That's right. You're down here because you're unsubscribed. And I hate that for you. I hate that journey. It's a bad journey. You should not be on that journey. You should be on the one where you're subscribed. So make sure to subscribe because I just hurt my hip doing that. And so, no, God. Okay. Please subscribe. Also,
Subscribe now.
I'm getting attacked by dogs.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm getting attacked.
Dog attack.
I'm getting attacked. You gotta subscribe to get them to go away. Ah! Mike, talk about number 10.
Okay, so number 10 is Tribes of the Wind, folks. Tribes of the Wind is a card-driven game. That's why it's on the list. This is a game where you're set in kind of a post-apocalyptic world where kind of society as we know it has fallen. And we are
we're trying to rebuild it with
trying to rebuild it and stuff with the forest. It's a pollution basically like ruined the earth and stuff. It's because it's what's actually happening on Earth right now. So it's after that happens, we're kind of living up in trees and stuff and trying to kind of rebuild society and stuff. And this game is all about playing out cards and stuff to kind of achieve your goals and ultimately build villages out onto your board. But it goes a step further of not just being card-driven in terms of the cards in your hand, but you are constantly monitoring the cards that your your neighbors have, to your left and your right.
Yeah.
And the cards that you play are going to be dependent on the cards they currently have, aka the colors. There's 4 colors in the game.
Four elements.
The 4
air, wire, fire, water, earth.
And you are only gonna be able to play certain cards if you like have more water than both of your opponents and things like that. So it's kind of this like game that really focuses on not just your hand of cards, but also your opponents. It's something that we haven't really seen card play kind of do that specifically, where it's like, I can't play this card unless your situation over here is different.
Yeah, or like I'm getting a lesser version of this card because I don't have more fire than everyone else.
Yeah.
And again, there is some like, you're moving around some pieces on your personal board, you're doing a little bit of tile laying, but again, the game is really driven by those cards because that's how you do everything, first of all. Yeah. And that's all the interaction of the game of just being like, oh, dang it, I was gonna play this card, but you just picked up a new Earth card, and now this card isn't as good anymore, so now I'm gonna pivot and do this. But the way you compare to your opponents is really, really cool. It also means that you only care about the person to your left and to your right. So if you're playing a higher player count game, you're not having to compare against everyone. It's only ever your neighbors, which is really cool. It's a super good game.
Yeah, and a game actually that works well at 2-player as well because there's this market of cards which you can pull from. And in a 2-player game, you kind of consider that as your like other neighbor.
Yeah.
So it actually works well at 2, which those types of games don't always do very well.
Not usually, yeah.
So we just enjoy the fact that so many cards have these like kind of prerequisites to be able to play based on your hand and also those neighbors. That is Tribes of the Wind.
Indeed. Number 2 is a game that we kind of both, especially you, rediscovered because we didn't really like this game. And this is Res Arcana.
Absolutely.
Shouts out to Jeff from Foster the Meeple.
Making it happen.
Really making it happen. Res Arcana is a game that we had played back in the day. Neither one of us really liked. We were always kind of like, I feel like I should like this game.
I just couldn't crack it. It was a game that for the longest time I was hampered. My enjoyment was hampered by the fact that I was so bad at the game.
Because this is a game of like kind of dealing with what you got. This is a card game, obviously, where you have these cards and you only are going to have 10 of them in the entire game, right? It's 10?
I think it's 8 or 10.
Or 10, somewhere in there. But nonetheless, you can draft them out, or you can just be given a hand. But those are the only cards you're getting in the entire game, and there's a whole bunch of them. So it's really like, how do I make these cards work? How do I work this engine with what you've got?
Yeah.
And it's super interesting.
Yeah, they're going to oftentimes allow you to kind of tap them to be able to produce resources. They might also give you like income from round to round, and you are just trying to figure out, how do I get this engine up and running and get these kind of big cards, these places of power, which are going to be usually things that are really expensive, that you can then start funneling your resources into to become worth points and stuff. So it's all about building like a really quick, fast engine with those cards. Which cards do you discard to get more resources and everything like that. So I enjoy both versions where you can draft out cards. That's like, probably the more strategic way to do it. But I also really have learned to embrace, you get your hand of cards, you select one of 2 mages, which are going to give you, a little bit more stuff you can do. And so it's like, how do I make this viable? Yeah. And you really can get tricky with it and make it happen, which is really exciting. So it's a game that, through the wonder of Board Game Arena,
got to play it a ton.
And Jeff and Foster the Meeple in general, I've been able to rediscover love for it. You got to play it with them when you visited them and got to enjoy it.
Got wrecked. It was great.
Yeah, so it's cool, and it's always a nice reminder that, like, if there's something that like nags at you where you're like,
I feel like I should like this. Give it a shot, right?
Why didn't I? It's maybe worth coming back to, because if it sticks in your brain for maybe a reason. So that is Res Arcana, one that is a new old love for us. I guess.
Really though. Number 8 is a pure deck building game. This is Hero Realms or Star Realms. They're the exact same game. One's space, one's fantasy. That's the only real difference.
Yeah, and the fantasy is way cooler because it's way more fun.
We're big fantasy people, So Res Arcana, Hero Realms is, again, a pure deck builder where you're given your kind of starting deck of cards, which is pretty bad. You also can play with like the characters expansion, which kind of gives everyone a different starting, which is very, very nice. But the good thing, and one of the reasons why we wanted to include this one, is because it's pure deck building, but mainly because that with a lot of deck building games, which is where you have a basic hand of cards, you're buying new cards that go in your discard pile, and they're shuffling through like that, and you're constantly getting cooler and cooler and cooler. There's usually a period in all those games in the beginning where the first third of the game, you're just building up, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
You don't have a lot going on.
But you're just building up. You're not having really cool turns. But Star Realms and Hero Realms, by turn 2, you are already insane because all the cards you get are insanely powerful, and they're all really cheap. So you can just buy them and get them, and then after a turn or 2, you're already wrecking. It's a quick game. It's meant to be quick. Yeah. And you're just getting OP insanely fast.
Yeah, it's just like a jump start to the game every time. And cards that you would be like, well, this card's so powerful, it must cost 8. You're like, no, it's like 4.
Yeah.
And so you can get into those cards really quickly. It's really combo heavy where if you can focus on a couple of the suits,
there's different factions.
You'll be able to kind of chain together extra actions on top of the main action to get money to buy stuff, heal up, and just build just these super combo turns and stuff. So it does, all that stuff in a deck building just faster, which is really satisfying.
It gets you to the middle of a normal deck building game basically immediately, and it's just nice because I don't mind that slow kind of build up, but it's nice, especially when you want a quicker game, be like, let's just get right into the crazy part of this game and start wrecking each other.
Especially because that's all the game is. There's nothing else to it. It's just the deck building. So they're like, well, let's get you to the funnest part immediately.
Exactly, and it's 2-player. It's meant to be quick. It's just head to head, and you just get right into it. It's really, really fun. Star Realms, if you like the more sci-fi thing. Hero Realms, if you want more fantasy thing. There's also a couple expansions, like a co-op version for Hero. So there's a whole bunch of content for these 2 games, and they're just really, really fun because you just get right into the middle of it, which is awesome. That's why it's number 8. Let's get number 7.
Number 7 may still be our favorite theme ever, certainly way up there.
What does that say about us?
Well, we appreciate originality, I suppose, and this is The Bloody Inn. So a bit of a dark theme, to be fair, because it's about murdering people, which we've talked about many times. This is a game where you are hotel proprietors, and you're running a hotel, and you are running a hotel simply with the express purpose of laundering people's money via literally robbing them after they're dead. So you are playing out. Everything is using cards to play out. And it does that great thing, I think, with cards where in order to play a card, you have to pay with other cards from your hand.
I love games that use cards as both currency and they're the thing that you're playing. You
Absolutely.
know what I mean?
Yeah, it creates a lot of tightness and stuff because everything is kind of between 0 and 3 costs and stuff, and those will be cards that you have to have in your hand. So it's really a tricky hand management game.
Yes.
In terms of like, what do I prioritize? I want to use all these cards, and what do I use them for? And there's different kinds of cards which relate to different types of guests and stuff.
Yes.
Some are like the nobility or the clergy or just kind of like business folk and things like that. And you can use these cards, they're also multi-purpose, as the guests that they are and the little ability and power they have. You can turn them into an annex, which gives you space to bury your bodies and stuff. You can make them guests in your hotel, which will give you a little bit of money, and then also make them a target. And stuff like that after you take them out. But each of those suits of cards will essentially give you a discount where if I pay with a blue card to recruit a card, I get to take that card back.
Yeah, because they're good. They're business people. They're money people. They're good at recruiting
with people and stuff. So each area, if you want to make annexes and you pay with red, I think.
Yeah, they're like the craftspeople.
Yeah, you get because they're the ones, the good builders and stuff. So there's ways to like make sure you keep cards in your hand, so you're not always having to spend and have to spend more time just simply.
But at the same time, at the end of every round, every card in your hand are people that are on your side, so you have to pay them. Yeah. And money is your points. You're paying them with points essentially, and
it's like, is it worth it to keep them around?
This game, I just played this like 2 days ago with our friend Jimmy, and it's a really. I'm always astonished at the balancing act and how elegant this game is, because despite the theme being very not elegant, it's just a very elegant design where, like, no matter what you're doing, whether you're bribing a guest, killing a guest, burying a guest, or turning them into an annex, the action is exactly the same. You just have to pay cards equal to their rank. That's the action, no matter what you're doing. And then sometimes you might get to get those cards back if you're using light colors. But that's it. That's the whole game. No matter what you're doing, it's the same. But you only get 2 actions per round. So you can't do everything in a round. So it's this balancing of like, how many cards do I keep back? How many cards do I use? There's also police coming through the hotel. So if you have an unburied corpse, you then basically just lose $10 and you lose it because the village gravedigger comes. You have to like, wait, can you come get this body out of here? You have to pay him $10 and they get him out of there. It's really cool despite the very weird theme. I like the theme because it's so ridiculous that it's silly fun to me, despite it being like kind of a really not fun theme.
The art and stuff is kind of
I think the art lends to it.
Gothic and stuff, but it's not gruesome at all.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? Even though what you're doing is obviously.
But the card play itself is so good, so elegant, such a tight game. Also pretty darn quick. It's just really, really good. I just replayed it and I'm like, god dang, Bloody End is so darn good.
Hard to beat.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a great card game. And it's got a very wholesome theme, which you love to see.
Yes, we need more of that. Number 6 is Empires of the North, Imperial Settlers. All the Imperial Settlers games can qualify for this kind of list. They are all card-driven. Empires of the North really gets you into whatever clan you are. You're going to have an entire deck of cards that's just for your character, essentially. And you're going to be playing out these cards into a tableau in front of you and then tapping those cards and stuff to produce resources, turn in resources for points and stuff. And each faction sort of has its own
thing,
engine that you can build, its own way of generating points. And it's sort of a race to get that engine up and running as quick as you can.
It's a race of 25 points. It's not very quick. And it comes, especially a 2-player game, if you're decisive people, this game is like 30 minutes. It's
at the most.
Super fast, It's just good. And like I said, it's all done through cards. And every faction is different, and you really have to like learn each faction. As you play, you're like, oh, this is how you kind of run their engine. Oh, I want to get this card out, so then this card then works off of that one. And I can start generating these resources, and I can use this card to turn those resources into points. And you just kind of like build off it. But again, each faction at this point, there's like 6 in the base game, and they've had, I think, 4 expansions with 2 each at this point. So there's like 12 to 14 factions in the game. They all work very differently, all have their own deck.
It's a solo campaign you can play with the game.
There's a whole bunch of different stuff for it.
There's a ton of stuff for it. Yeah, we just really enjoy like the art, the style. We enjoy Empires of the North over Imperial Settlers because I like just the uniqueness of like all of my cards are from this one faction versus having an Imperial Settlers a bunch of generic cards and then some cards from your faction. And just like the way you can work it, and I love the speed of it. It goes by so fast in a good way, where I'm like, cool, I get to feel like I did all this stuff and only took 30 minutes. Not many games can do that. So that is number 6, Empires of the North.
Number 5 is a new one for us. Shouts out to Dwayne and Elise here from Black Board Game. You should check them out. They're really, really wonderful people. This is going to be Wind the Film or Photograph if you're here in the States.
Look at this photograph.
It's called Photograph, but it's the exact same game. Same art and everything. But Wind the Film is a hard game. It's
a hand management game in terms of the hand.
Insanely difficult little card game, man.
Oh, man, it's a wild one. It is a game where you are doing set collection. You're trying to make runs of cards in the different colors, and it's you kind of going on a...
You're filming a movie, or essentially, or something like that.
Yeah, you're taking photos and stuff of different areas in town and stuff like that. So it's a really tricky game where you are drafting cards from a central tableau. Some cards are face up, some are face down. If they're face down, you'll know the color and a number range.
A general range.
It's going to be 7 to 12, or it's going to be 1 through 6, but you don't know what number specifically.
You don't.
And as you draft cards into your hand, you're going to put them specifically to the right side of your hand in order that you draft them in. And then you can do something called winding the film, where you can take one of the cards in your hand. You can't just freely rearrange your hand.
Nope.
You can take one of the cards and slide it to the right as far as you want, and then drop it in. And if I drafted, say, 2 cards are going to go back out of my hand. So I will end my turn with the same amount of cards that I began my turn with. And so there's this really interesting thing of you're trying to get a sequence of cards in your hand so that as you play cards out to these runs, you can basically make sure you can play cards legally.
Yeah, because when you play cards, so when you draft 2 cards, you have to wind the film. You have to move something.
Move something.
You will move something, and then however many cards you drafted, you have to play that many from the left side of your hand.
From the other end.
So you don't get to choose, and so it's this insanely hard balance, because as Mike said, you have to put things down in ascending or descending orders, because you're taking a series of pictures, so they have to be in order. And there is a little bit of wiggle room where you can always put something that is, if you're going ascending, you're going up, you can put something within 3. So if you have 1, you can either after 1 put 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
And then from 4, you can put 5, 6, or 7. So it's not like 1, 2, 3, 4. You can have a little bit of wiggle room. But the thing is once you start going one direction, like let's say you start in 5 and you're like, okay, the next thing to put down is a 6. You are then ascending.
So
you
1
can
through
never
4,
ever
not
put
useful.
anything lower than that. And so it's this tough thing of drafting. And as Mike said, some of the cards are face down that you're drafting, but the ones that are face down are just going to give you a range. So you're like, oh, this is a gray card, and it's somewhere between 7 and 12. You don't know what 7 and 12 it is.
You hope it's the 8.
And so you can do somewhere like, okay, well, Mike has the 8, 9, and 10. So this can't be those because there's only one of each card. And it's really difficult. It's really, really difficult. It like absolutely melts your brain. But it's so cool. Like a lot of Sashi and Sashi games, it's just so unique. It doesn't feel anything like anything else.
Right.
It's just so weird and cool. And I love the theme. It's just like you're just out taking pictures. It's just a beautiful, cool theme. I love the art. It's tough though.
It's a very pleasing game that will shred your mind.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's rough, man. It's tough.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's something again that is really fascinating. You'll see this again later in the list and stuff. But that idea of like you can't just freely rearrange your cards, and that is the puzzle. Is how do you get the cards in the order that you want them so that they are viable for you to use? Is really, really cool.
Yeah,
so.
super good. Wind the film, super, super great. Number 5. Let's get number 4. Number 4, you also can't rearrange your hand.
You can't. This is Scout.
Love
this
Scout.
is a game that famously, once you get your hand of cards and you just spread them out in your hand, that is the order they are in. You can flip your entire hand over, which will have different arrangement of numbers. But you are then locked into that hand being that direction. And this is a card shedding, a ladder climbing game where essentially someone will start off by playing, a 2, say, and you need to play something that's more valuable than what has been played in front of the,
on the table,
before you. So if a 2's there, I could play a 3, that's higher. Or I could play like 2 1s, because having more cards played down at once, even if the values are lower, is more powerful than playing just a single card. You can also play runs of cards, like a 2, 3, 4. But to do this, I can't just take a 2 from over here in my hand and a 3 from over here and a 4. They have to actually be next to each other in your hand in order for you to pluck them out and play them down. And that's where a lot of the challenge comes in, is if all my numbers are kind of just randomly mess up. How do I get them so that all of my 2s are now together and I have 4 of them? Or something?
So in your hand, if you have like 1 7 here and then a 4 and then 2 more 7s, what you need to do is you need to try and get rid of that 4, because then once the 4 is gone, boom, now you have 3 7s together.
Yeah.
And that's so much of the game. It's just like, how do I make this work to get the cool stuff in my hand together so I can actually play them together. And you can do something called scouting in the game, where when there's something down there, you can choose to scout. You will have to give someone a point. They will gain a point whenever you scout. And then you can take one of the cards they put down that's on either end. So if they put down 5 cards, you can only take the ones on the end. And then you get to put that card on either way, anywhere in your hand. And so scouting is like a massive, massive part of the strategy. Because that's another way where sometimes we're like, I don't necessarily need to scout. I could beat this, but I'm gonna scout because this card is gonna make my hand even cooler.
Yeah, being able to scout at the right time and stuff, even if you don't necessarily need to for that moment, is useful because you're ultimately trying to be the first one to get rid of all your cards.
Generally, yeah.
And if you get rid of all but one card, and that card is just a single 3, it's gonna be really hard to be able to play that because most likely people have played stuff that's more powerful than that. So it is really about setting yourself up so that you can maybe then go on a run and play a bunch of cards. And if you're not the first person out, all those cards in your hand count against your score. So it's like trying to play with that timing of everything. It just creates a lot of intrigue. I love the fact that when you take a card, you can put either end of it face up and they will have different numbers. And how do you build and then maintain that hand as you go.
And just like a lot of like trick-taking games, stuff like that, it's like the whole thing is you get your hand and then that's the puzzle. And it's different every single time. And it's just so fun. I just played this recently and it had been a while. And I was reminded, I was like, oh, that's why we played Scout like 50 times in a year. Like, it's incredible. Scout's so darn good. It's number 4. It's so wonderful. Let's get number 3.
So number 3 is a cooperative trick-taking game.
Gotta have at least one trick-taking.
You do.
We could have filled this entire thing with trick-taking games. Let's be completely honest.
We probably will do a top 10 trick-taking game
at
list
some point.
At some point. We're kind of in a trick-taking renaissance right now.
It sure feels like it.
There's a lot of them out there, and they are all so fun.
This is the crew.
This is the crew. We quite enjoy trick-taking games. I like that there's so many out there that put a little twist on trick-taking. This one for us was big because, at least at the time, it was one of the first ones that we'd really heard of that does trick-taking in a cooperative way. Now, if you play like Spades or something, a classic, it's a team game. But it's really fun to play something where it's not just like bidding how many tricks you think you can win and stuff, making it cooperative, but then really making the game about the way you communicate through the cards you play, which is a big thing in trick-taking. It's just like, how am I manipulating and controlling what's going on? And how, if you're playing something with a teammate or cooperatively, how do I communicate to my partner or partners what I have, what I need, what I can't do, and things like that. And this one gives you basically missions you're going for, different tasks you need to complete. Like, I need Nick to win the blue 7. I have to, win no tricks or get one of the rockets. You have
to win the second trick. Stuff like that.
All kinds of things like that. And you're trying to make sure that everyone can accomplish their goals, which can be really difficult because sometimes they might seem counterproductive. And also, if you don't have the blue 7, it's like, okay, well, I have the blue 7. You need to win it. So I need to get this into a trick that I do not win because we need you to make sure to win that trick. And how do we guarantee those things to happen? It's just really fun. I think the fact that it's cooperative means that it creates a lot of chances to talk through strategy stuff. After that round, say, oh, this happened, I was trying to communicate this, and I feel like it's a good way to help develop the language of trick-taking and stuff, and do it together where we have a common goal. And in being kind of united in that.
Yeah, it's great. And I like any game that kind of like forces you to play in a way that you kind of normally wouldn't. Like most times with trick-taking games, you're either trying to like win the most tricks or not win any tricks, right? It's usually one of those two things. But in this time, it's like you're trying to get specifically the pink 7. That's very different. Like usually that's not like a lot of trick-taking games where you need these specific things. I love, whether it's board games or video games, I love anything where it's like, here's a thing that you normally would not be doing in a game, but we're going to have you do that. Where it's like, oh, I need to win the second trick. I need to not win the last trick. I need to, all these different things that just force you to play in different ways, force you to think about things in different ways. And then, like Mikey, you said, it's like it really, really forces you to communicate in that way that you do during trick-taking games, because you're like, well, I've got to get rid of this card. I've got to let people know somehow that I have it, without actually saying it or anything like that. It's just so good. Both the crews are great, but definitely play Crew Mission Deep Sea. It's the better of the two. It's just so wonderful. Yeah, I love the crew. It's just absolute banger.
Absolutely. Trick-taking is amazing. Can't wait for more. So that's our trick-taking pick for this one. But again, there's literally so many ones.
List.
And if you want to see a trick-taking list, just
let us
know in the comments and we'll do it.
Number 2 is a drafting game, and this is It's a Wonderful World. This is a game where you have these big old tarot-sized cards, and you are drafting them out, which is where you have a hand of cards. You pick a card, and you pass those cards to the person on your left or your right, depending on which way you're drafting. And then you pick a card from the cards you got, and then you keep going around until you have 7 cards. In It's a Wonderful World, you have 7. And all of these cards are going to take certain resources, like 5 resources of the game and like 1 wild resource. And they're all going to take these resources for you to construct those cards. On the top left, you'll be able to see what it takes. It's going to take like 2 yellows, 1 gray, and a blue. That's what it takes to build this, whatever the card is. You're kind of, the theme is like you're like
the
throughout
different constructions.
Time. Yeah,
it's a low fantasy, sci-fi, future
theme,
world.
It's just card playing, right?
Yeah.
So then, you have your 7 cards, and then you have to choose which ones you're going to start working on. And by working, I mean starting to put resources on them, trying to build them, and other cards that you're just going to recycle. Because each card, if you just throw it away and recycle it, will give you a resource. And that's, in a lot of ways, how you're going to build out these cards.
That balance point.
Yeah, and then once you finish it, like all the resources that you need to pay for, those resources go away, and that card will go basically into your production row. And it will either give you production, and give you more resources, and or it'll have some kind of scoring on it.
Yep.
And then once everyone's done all that, then everyone will run basically all of their production, and then I'll give you resources to put on cards and build. And that's all it is. It's a pretty simple game, but there's something about this one that just sings so good.
I think it's another one that falls into a category of being very quick and giving you a lot of, like, you feel like you got a lot done, hopefully.
Yeah.
And I think as we kind of started playing this game more, we started discovering that really it isn't about, okay, now I have these 7 cards I just drafted, I'm going to try to build them all. It's like, no.
You're going to build like 2?
Maybe 2 or 3, like, and being really select about, like, what am I building and what cards am I drafting simply for the recycling icon. I need blues right now, and the other day we played it at Dice Hour West, I was like, I'm just hunting blues. If it doesn't have blue in the corner, I don't want it.
Get out of here.
Because I'm trying to build this card over here, and finding that balance point of like making sure that everything you build is done in as efficient a manner as possible.
Yep.
And then as you can put them out there, if it's something that starts producing resources, making sure that you have cards that you're working on that are going to benefit from the resources you're producing so that those don't go to waste.
Yeah.
And it really is this kind of tense, tight battle to make everything maximized. And then a lot of things of the scoring will come down to, like, 2 points for every of your yellow cards. So maybe I'm going to go for a lot of yellow cards here and try to build a ton of those, and they'll typically produce money, which helps me make more yellow cards. So you can kind of like specialize in the scoring.
And there's a ton of cards, and so it's
so
like
many.
every single
Expansions
game.
with more cards.
Yeah, tons of expansions, like campaign stuff. This game's really good solo. Like, this is a game where every one time you play, it's going to be different because you're going to be getting different cards.
Yep.
And you're just figuring out how to make it work, how to make your engine work. It's just so much fun. There's a lot of great drafting games out there, but this is by far my favorite because it just, like I said, it's just smooth. It just sings. It's so, so good. If it's not number 1, it's number 2. It's number 1. First of all, if you skipped only to number 1 and see what it is, you have to subscribe.
All right,
Just
facts.
put it out there. You have to do it right now.
Okay.
What's number 1, Mikey?
It is cribbage.
Gosh, it's so good. We have to have a classic
We have
card
to put
game.
a classic card game on here. You can't.
God, I love cribbage so much.
There literally are thousands of games you can play with a standard 52 card deck of cards. So cribbage for us is the one that we played growing up, that we still play now. That uses just a standard deck of cards and a little board to track your score, or you can use an app to track your score, or whatever. But it is a card play kind of game where each round is going to have one of the players as the dealer. You're going to deal out 6 cards. Each, and if I was the dealer, I'm going to take 2 cards and discard them to my crib. Nick will discard 2 of your cards to my crib, hopefully not giving anything that's too valuable to me.
Hopefully.
And then we go into a round where we play out our cards. And you can score points and stuff for making combinations add up to 15 or to exactly 31. Or if
Pairs,
Nick plays a 2 and I
runs.
play a 2,
Yeah.
you can do all sorts of things like that. And then at the end, you'll also score your hand as well for all of those same kinds of things, for runs of cards and pairs and sets.
15s.
And things that add up to 15 will all score you points. And it's the first one, I think, to 121 points wins the game. This one is that perfect for us. I think a lot of card games, part of why they're so popular and why we keep coming back to them is that they are casual.
Yeah.
There's a level of casualness to a lot of those games that allows for you to be playing the game and then chatting.
Yeah, this is very much
Cribbage is a
that kind of
social game.
Yeah.
It's not. There's not so much going on that you can't just be carrying on a conversation, talking about the kids, talking about life or whatever while you're doing an activity.
Yeah.
And I think that's why those card games are great. You get together, there's people still, come and play bridge. It's not because they love bridge so much. It's because they like the social element, which board games is just an extension of that same idea. It's like, I just want to spend time with my friends. This is a great activity to facilitate us all coming together, but the game itself doesn't matter all that much. It is about the time we spend with people. And so cribbage is something that we got to bond with our grandparents and other family members over. It helped teach us math as kids.
Yeah.
It helped us develop ideas of like strategy and like, oh, it's your crib. I don't want to hand you a 5 because there's more 10s, all the face cards in the deck than anything else.
That's a lot of 15s.
You might get a lot of 15s. So like thinking about stuff like that, tracking stuff, strategy. There's all these things that were able to happen as a result of playing that as kids. And so it's something that we're insanely grateful that we had the opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And then now kind of carry forward to the next generation. And stuff.
Yeah, we've been playing this ever since we could do basic math, basically, and we still play. I love cribbage. I play cribbage. There's a great app called Cribbage with Grandpa. I've made Grandpa look like our unfortunately deceased grandfather, and I'm playing with Grandpa Hans to this day because I'm playing through that app, and I love it. I play it on planes all the time. But it's just like, it falls into the same category that many card games do, especially many of these. It's like you're given a hand of cards, and you got to make that hand of cards work, right? It's like, oh, I'm giving a really good hand, or sometimes like, oh, I'm not really giving a good hand. It's my crib? Okay, I'll throw a 15 in my crib because I get to score my crib, so that's great, no problem. Oh, it's my crib? Well, I don't want to throw a 7 and 8 in there. That's way dangerous. And so it's like, it's just, you're dealing with that, but like, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's just a casual game that you can play at a pub, play at a restaurant, just play while you're eating, play while you're just hanging out, and you can talk and just socialize. There's tons and tons of cribbage boards. It's small. There's little, like little travel packs. It's just, you can do so much stuff. I love cribbage so much. I love it. So it's one of my favorite games of all time for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is our list of our favorite card games and stuff. Again, just as a reminder, these are just our favorites. There are so many more card games out there. We would love to hear your list. What are the card games, one or more games out there that you love to play or grew up playing or whatever? Get those in the comments below. We love to always have a chance to share, especially with folks who are new to the hobby coming to this video, and we would love to have a large list of recommendations in the comments. So please give your picks for favorite card games in the comments below.
And there's another 10 over on our Patreon, so if you want to be a patron today, feel free. We would love to have you over there. We post a lot of stuff over there.
Scrolling down here, by the way, is all of our patrons, so you can get on that list by becoming a patron today and get a bunch of supplemental stuff, first looks at games, first thoughts, best of the weeks, all sorts of things going on over on our Patreon, so we appreciate that support. It helps us every single day.
Yes, it does.
And those are our card games, everybody.
I guess
that's it. I said it with a finality.
You sure did. I was like, should I talk now?
No, I was scared at how abrupt that was. My bad. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching that top 10. We really, really appreciate it. Want to give a big shout out to our channel sponsors, Restoration Games, Board Game Geek, and Garphill Games. Make sure to check out some other top 10s on the right side of your screen, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.